So I used to have a really uncomfortable relationship with swing. I've always really loved jazz, especially kind of soulful jazz. Maybe not so much bebop, and although no, I do like it. But it's like I like jazz to have a bit of a maybe an impressionistic quality. I always really loved Bill Evans, and yeah, I like jazz, and I like soul, and I therefore was supposed to like swing, but I often hear this kind of hard, bright swing that you hear in modern jazz and of course jazz bands too. And I found it a bit hard to do myself. It didn't seem to come naturally to me. It didn't feel lyrical, didn't feel flowing, felt a bit driven. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. If people like swing that feels very bright and hard and driven, that's cool. I mean, it gives it a nice chirpy party sound sometimes, or it can sound quite aggressive and serious and, quite competitive. That's great. If you like that sort of thing, that's absolutely great. But my whole aesthetic musically is about fluency. It's about telling stories. It's about the music being beautiful and expressive and sort of improvisatory. I genuinely improvise. I don't drill scales. I actually want to make up music on the spot, unplanned completely. And so, yeah, I had this funny relationship with swing until I realized something, that it isn't really just triplets at all. Not at all. This idea of it being just triplets, I used to often think, surely if it's just triplets, why don't you write triplets? It's not triplets. If I go diddle, 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 that's completely straight, or as good as. So if I stretch it and go diddle, 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 like that, that's not all the way to a triplet. I'm not going did dum da dum da dum da dum da. Now I could get the feel of my diddles almost all the way to being a dum da, diddle, 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 diddle. But it still doesn't kind of feel like dum da dum da dum da dum da. The feel is different. So I kind of realized that there's something in the feel of the kind of swing that I could do and like to do that was different. So I do my swing with my sort of impressionistic lyrical jazz that I play, which is not like bebop or straight ahead or cool jazz or any of those kind of modern jazz sounds. It's my own style. And I could do it and it would sound something like this. Still swinging. It doesn't sound like that kind of hard, bright, modern jazz swing, does it? It's different. And I like that. I sort of like it. And I can still bring that in if I'm, accompanying a singer on a Gershwin song and they want it to swing. I can do that. And people generally seem to quite like it, which is good. Very rarely do people sort of say to me, oh, can you not give it a nice, hard, bright, proper triplet swing? So you're feeling the groove. The groove has a bend. So it's all about flexibility. You can probably tell I'm obsessed with groove. I'm obsessed with there being flexibility. But why? What is it about flexibility? What is it that I like? And I think what it is that it tells stories. It becomes more meaningful. So the idea for me of adding swing is a bit like adding emphasis. Lengthening a note actually is a bit like accenting a note. So when I'm speaking, and this is kind of the trick, this is the thing to really get in touch with inside us. If I'm speaking and I said, let me think of a sentence. Did he really say that? Now, if I want to put more emphasis, I might go, did he really say that? Did you hear that emphasis? Obviously, I raised my voice as well. There was a dynamic difference. But I went, da, 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 da. That's swing, isn't it? Whereas if I go, did he really say that? It sounds very matter of fact. So it's swing is an expressive thing, or it can be. It doesn't have to be. It could just be turning your duples into triples. I mean, why not? It can be. I mean, if that's all you need to do, then it's bright and crisp and neat sounding. But when it has this expressive quality, you can also make it sound very laid back. I might go, oh, did he really say that? Yeah, it's kind of laid back. So it's all this thing of plugging into this storytelling, plugging into it being like speech rhythm. Because we do speak very rhythmically. We have this natural ability with speech. So that's what I'm doing. I'm feeling like when I go diddle, 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 I'm using the groove. You can feel that poetic groove thing that I'm always going on about. You can hear that groove, and I'm using that groove, but I'm also putting a kind of rhythmic emphasis, lengthening the first. So what would happen if I did the opposite? Did he really say that? That's also very expressive, isn't it? That's going towards what you might call a snap, kind of the opposite of a swing. Did-um, did-um, did-um. If I say it as triplets, just normal. Did-um, 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 diddle-a, did-um. I put a diddler in that, shows triplety. If I go diddle, 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 that's obviously a flexible feeling, more speech rhythm again, and I'm snapping slightly. And you can do that. Often in classical music, it sounds quite nice. Could actually swing it. Flexible kind of swing, isn't it? But there is a little swing going on, and they did actually write about this in France in the 18th century. They were very interested in this idea, or the academics were, and they wrote treatises about it. Note inégal, unequal notes. So swing has been around a long time. It's not just jazz that swings or other 20th century popular styles that swing. Swing has been around a long time because we can't actually play perfectly in time easily. It's a very specific kind of rhythmic skill. It's quite tiring for me. I'm not really interested in it. As I say, I like rhythm that kind of flows and tells stories. That's what I like. And I do find myself wondering if that isn't kind of why swing came into jazz in the first place. Jazz didn't start off being like modern jazz. Modern jazz is quite a different genre, I think, from early jazz. So that kind of stuffiness of straight rhythm, if I try and play it really straight. Kind of flat, sort of straight quality. Never been my thing. I've never liked it. I like things to be lyrical. So that, as I say, discovering that swing is just a storytelling thing. Did he really say that? Did he really say that? It's adding emphasis. It's adding emphasis to certain syllables. Diddle, 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 diddle. Say it very fast. Diddle, 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 diddle. Now I sound really excited. So it adds that quality of expressiveness when you do it through a speech rhythm. So to practice it, what I recommend for people is to practice saying that. You could think of a phrase like, did he really say that? And get that feeling that you're telling something and tell it in that way with that sort of lengthening emphasis on the dear, and then your dull is kind of tapered away. Diddle, 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 diddle. So you're telling it. And that's the trick. Obviously, you've got to let go. You've got to get your fingers to say what you play. That's not necessarily easy. If I go diddle-dum, diddle-dum, you got to be able to get that seamless connection. We have a tendency to be a little bit sort of, like detached from what we're doing, like we're controlling it too much. We've got to feel fully connected to the keys and just say the rhythms that we play, rather the rhythms that we say, or say them with our fingers. That's the thing. And that produces this natural rhythm. And it's interesting, just one last thing that I thought I would mention about the note inégal. In Baroque music on the keyboard, there is some good reason for using rhythmic flexibility like swing or any other kind of flexibility, maybe a combination of swing and snap. So if I go diddle little, diddle little, diddle little, diddle little, I'm like swinging the first two, lengthening, leaning, diddle, and then little, snapping the second two, diddle little, diddle little. I can even go diddle little, diddle little, diddle little, diddle little, diddle little. So I can do different amounts and create these arcs. On a harpsichord, you're kind of forced to do things like that if you want any kind of expressiveness at all, because there aren't different touch sensitive dynamics. You can't produce louds and softs like on the piano. So you're kind of limited by that, and then forced to use rhythmic accentuation to produce something like dynamics. It's not really a very controversial or surprising thing to say that is kind of like jazz. Or my kind of jazz, the kind of jazz that I like to play. So that's kind of my take on swing. It's like speech rhythm, it's adding emphasis. You can practice it by saying rhythm in a natural way, in that way, and playing it. Totally different. The point that I'm making is it's not, for me, it's not when I swing diddle-liddle, it's not the same as going dum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-da. That is a different rhythm. That's quite settled, if you like, in its own rhythmic pattern. Dum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-da-dum-da. It doesn't have special emphasis. Whereas diddle-liddle, 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 diddle-liddle. It's got extra expressive emphasis that lengthens the first of each duplet.